There have been a lot of discussions, and I even went to a symposium a couple weeks ago, which was discussing the whole topic of startups and startup failure. And I've written a blog on that you can see at my website, bradlienhart.com. But this concept of trying to figure out what a real entrepreneurial startup is very fascinating to me. And I've spent the last several years actually coaching people and mentoring startups, and I've got a pretty good idea of what it takes to actually be a real entrepreneurial startup. And I've had maybe 4,000 discussions with people over the last 10 years about an idea that they had, a business that they wanted to start. And I've graded those in my own way down to about 25% of that 4,000 actually had what it takes to be a business. So 1 out of 4 would be the ratio I would sort of judge to be a real business startup of people that walk through the door with an idea or a business. And sometimes they even have a business plan. They may have a name, they may have an LLC, they may have an EIN, but they may not be anywhere close to actually being a real business startup. So I just came up with some characteristics that I thought would kind of help you as an entrepreneur or a small business startup think about what it takes. And if you don't have these 13 characteristics, or most of them, or you're working on them, then you're probably not ready for a real entrepreneurial startup grading. So here's number 1, solid communications. Solid communications with skills matching each of the stakeholder groups that you're going to be talking to. You're not just going to be talking to your employees, you're talking to investors, you're talking to the community. There's a number of stakeholders that a business leader is responsible for communicating with. Some experience and training in the area of the business that you're going to get into. There's nothing like knowing a little bit more about the business, and I think I'd just like to try this. We always talk about passion, and passion is very important for the entrepreneur. So you have to buy the idea, you have to believe in the idea, you have to have passion for the idea. And you have to have a solid support team around you. The statistics say that people that buy into some kind of a structured training program have about a 70% better chance of success than those who try to wing it and do it on their own. So find yourself a structured training program, a mentor, a coach, advisors, and don't forget your service providers. Your service providers can be tremendous allies and team members in starting a successful business. Clear concept of how the product and service will work. So you actually have worked your way through the delivery cycle and think about how easy it's going to be for the product to work in the hands of the buyer. Who will buy and how will they make that buying decision? Buyer persona, the sales funnel. You have to have some real thought put into that. Don't rush these things. You need to be taking several months, probably a year or two, to have all of these characteristics kind of worked out before you're ready to start this new business. And what's a solid effort that needs to go into market research? That's really one of the things that kind of irritates me sometimes when I have these startups come through the door and say, oh, I don't have any competition. We all have competition. It's direct and it's indirect. The indirect ones are the surprises that come along that are new technology that can knock us off our block. But think about competition, think about it close to home, think about it away from home. Have 5 good competitive reviews that you've done using a SWOT analysis approach, and measure those 5 competitors against your own SWOT analysis. Age and gender are characteristics that are not critical. We're actually finding lots of entrepreneurs who are in their 50s and 60s, particularly a lot of those people moving into North Carolina. Be realistic about the monetary requirements for the business, not just over the first week, but over the first 24 months. When I'm asked what's it take to start a business, I say $50,000 to $250,000, depending on whether you're starting a service business or a product-related business. But for damn sure, you better have $50,000 in hand, in the bank, or know exactly how you're going to get it before you even think about opening the door. Because you'll use $50,000 up in the first 6 months before you know it. And you'll do it for good reason, particularly if you're working with good support service people that are going to be helping you with services like accounting, HR, marketing, legal, and other important issues like that, including insurance. Understand the importance of keeping the business and your personal finances separate. That's one of the things that really bothers me when I see these startup entrepreneurs mingling their bank accounts with personal and financial money going in one pocket, out the other pocket without separation. Separation of business and personal is like separation of church and state, I guess. And because these characteristics are so important, it's also critical that you know what you do know and what you don't know. You're not going to be the end-all be-all for all the answers to all the questions. So think about what you're missing, and again, go back to those areas like accounting and law and insurance, human resources and marketing, where you really need specialized support. Those will be the best dollars you ever spent with those kind of people, and they can be really strong teammates, really strong leadership teammates. And don't forget the structured training. Look for a good structured training program. In the Triangle of North Carolina alone, there are at least 50 different organizations providing structured training programs, and I'm not counting the universities and community colleges. And with that structured training program, find yourself a coach or a mentor. Last but not least, this is kind of characteristic number 14. If you have somebody on your team, or if you are the team leader, and you've done this before, and you've had some success with it, or even possibly had failure, but you learned from your failure, then that is a real premium. Being a serial entrepreneur gives you a real leg up in terms of being a successful, real entrepreneurial startup.